Imagine this. You're sitting across from her, having a casual conversation. Nothing seems out of the ordinary. You're calm, relaxed. You're not trying too hard. You're not forcing anything. And yet, something begins to shift. She starts to look at you differently. Her eyes linger a little longer. Her laugh comes more easily. She feels drawn to you, intrigued by you. She doesn't know why, but suddenly, she can't stop thinking about you. That, right there, is the power of planting ideas in a woman's mind without her even noticing. And no, we're not talking about corny pickup lines or manipulative games. This goes far beyond that. What we're diving into is the psychology of subtle influence, the art of suggestion, the ability to bypass her logical mind and embed yourself directly into her imagination. This is where real seduction begins. Not with what you say, but with what she feels without knowing why she's feeling it. It's what masters of influence have always understood. Casanova knew it, Robert Greene decoded it, and Neil Strauss refined it. But here's what no one tells you. Planting an idea in her mind isn't about overpowering her. It's not about dominating the interaction. It's about becoming a silent architect of her curiosity. When done right, she'll think it was her idea all along. She'll chase the emotion, not realizing you're the one who sparked it in the first place. So if you've ever wanted to make a woman think about you when you're not around, if you've ever wanted her to replay your words in her head late at night, if you've ever wanted to be the man who doesn't try hard but always leaves a lasting impression, then keep listening. Because in this video, I'm going to break down the exact psychological techniques that will allow you to do just that, step by step, based on real behavioral science, seduction theory, and field-tested strategies. And once you learn how to use them, there's no going back. You'll be playing the game on a whole new level, one where you control the frame, you direct the emotional energy, and she's the one following your lead. Let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is that a woman's attraction is far more emotional than logical. This isn't a cliché, it's neuroscience. The female brain is wired to pick up on subtleties, tone, rhythm, eye contact, micro-expressions, pacing, energy. That means the ideas you plant can't be obvious or direct. If she detects your intention too early, her defenses go up. But when you speak to her subconscious, bypassing the filters of logic, that's when the idea slips through the back door of her mind and takes root. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through what's known as covert priming. Let me explain. Imagine you're talking to her about a dream you had. You describe a setting, a feeling, maybe even a subtle romantic detail, not involving her directly. But here's the key. You use sensory language that makes her feel immersed in the story. You talk about warmth, skin, closeness, laughter, a slow whisper in the ear. Her brain fills in the blanks. She begins to experience those sensations herself. And because you're the one speaking, her mind subconsciously associates those feelings with you. This is what the best seducers understand. It's not about telling her you're confident, it's about making her feel that you are. Not by declaring attraction, but by creating a space where her own desire can surface naturally. Women don't fall in love with what they're told. They fall in love with how someone makes them feel without saying it directly. Another technique that's dangerously effective is embedded commands. This comes straight from the world of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. These are subtle phrases you can slip into a normal sentence that act like hypnotic suggestions. For example, if you say something like, "I was just talking with a friend about how powerful it is when you let yourself feel that deep connection with someone without resisting it," you're not telling her to connect with you, but the subconscious hears it anyway. And here's the kicker. Her mind accepts it more easily because it doesn't perceive it as a command. We'll go deeper into these techniques in the next part, because once you master this, you'll realize something powerful. Real seduction isn't about being the loudest guy in the room. It's about being the most unforgettable. And when you learn how to plant those ideas, desires, and fantasies in her mind without her even realizing it, that's when she won't just want you. She'll need to understand why she can't stop thinking about you. Now let's take this deeper. If planting an idea is about subtly bypassing her defenses, then anchoring that idea is about making it stick. A planted idea without an emotional hook fades, but one that's anchored to a powerful emotion, curiosity, thrill, even confusion, lingers. It loops. It repeats itself in her mind like a song she didn't expect to like, but can't stop humming. That's the level you want to reach. Not just to drop a seed into her subconscious, but to make sure that seed blooms. So how do you anchor an idea like that? You use something that few men understand: emotional contrast. Most guys keep their vibe flat, either too serious or too playful, but women respond most intensely when they feel emotionally moved. That doesn't mean being dramatic or manipulative. It means giving her an experience of subtle emotional highs and lows during the interaction. Not chaos, polarity. When you shift between confidence and mystery, playfulness and intensity, humor and a moment of calm silence, you create contrast. And contrast is what makes a moment memorable. It's what makes you memorable. Let me give you an example from real-world fieldwork. A student of mine once told a woman he just met, "You know, there's something about you that feels familiar. Not in a boring way, but like déjà vu. Like I've met you in a dream I forgot I had." He said it slowly, with calm eye contact, and didn't explain further. He just let it hang. She laughed nervously, then later admitted she kept replaying that line in her head for days. Why? Because it wasn't a compliment. It was an invitation into a feeling. He didn't tell her what to think, he made her wonder. This is where the game gets subtle. Most men over-communicate. They try to spell everything out, hoping to be understood. But the man who knows how to suggest, who knows how to leave a sentence slightly incomplete, who knows how to pause before the punchline, who knows how to create that space for her mind to wander, he becomes the puzzle she wants to solve. Because her imagination is far more seductive than your words ever could be. Another advanced layer is emotional misdirection. This comes from stage hypnosis, and it's brilliantly effective in seduction. It means leading her attention in one direction while you're planting the real message somewhere else. Think of it like a magician who shows you the right hand while the trick happens in the left. For example, you could be talking about your childhood memory, innocent, non-threatening, while your tone, your eye contact, your pauses are triggering something entirely different in her emotionally. She's listening to the story, but she's feeling something much more intimate underneath it. The trick is to craft your stories so that they carry a second, hidden emotional message, a message that speaks directly to her subconscious. And if you want to take it even further, tie your presence to a sensory trigger. Humans are deeply responsive to sensory memory. Smells, sounds, even colors. That's why perfume ads don't sell the product, they sell the feeling. If every time she sees you, you carry a specific scent or speak with a certain rhythm or wear a subtle signature color, her mind begins to link those sensory cues to the way you make her feel. It's called emotional conditioning. Pavlov's dog salivated at a bell. She'll start to feel a rush just by seeing that color on someone else, or hearing a voice that sounds like yours. Now here's a rarely spoken truth. Women don't fall for the man who is always present. They fall for the man who lingers, in thought, in memory, in imagination. That's why sometimes a simple text after a powerful moment can reopen the loop. Not with a hey or a good morning, but something that reawakens the emotional state you left her in. Something like, "I still remember the way you looked at me when you laughed at that dumb joke. There was something in your eyes." You're not flirting, you're reigniting the association. That's high level. And if you truly want to master this, you have to learn to read her responses. Not her words, but the micro reactions. Does she blink faster when you speak about a certain emotion? Does she play with her necklace when you slow your voice? These are access points to her subconscious. These signals tell you when an idea has landed, even if she won't admit it consciously. The men who dominate in this game are not the loudest. They're the most attuned. They plant, they watch, they wait. Because here's the game within the game. She thinks she's in control. She thinks she's deciding who she wants. But in reality, you're already 2 moves ahead. Planting, anchoring, triggering, suggesting. And she doesn't even see it. All she knows is, you feel different. Let's now step into the domain where seduction becomes art. Time-delayed influence. This is where you implant a thought so gently that it doesn't bloom right away. It lies dormant, unnoticed, like a seed under soil, until the right emotional moment waters it. And then suddenly, days later, hours after you've left her presence, she feels something. A curiosity, a pull, a question that comes from nowhere. But that question didn't come from nowhere. It came from you. That's the long game. That's when you realize the most powerful ideas are the ones she thinks she created herself. And the key to this level is narrative shaping. See, human beings don't think in logic, we think in stories. If you subtly place yourself in the story she's already telling herself, she won't resist it. Every woman has an internal script. How she thinks love should feel, how mystery should unfold, how intensity should escalate. When you listen deeply, when you observe her patterns and beliefs, you can position yourself inside her fantasy, not by pretending, but by echoing just enough of what she's already drawn to. You become the living version of the archetype she never knew she was waiting for. This is what master seducers like Jean Baudrillard alluded to when they said seduction is not about possession. It's about disappearance. Being there and not there. Seen and then elusive again. Why? Because the absence you create amplifies the presence she remembers. So when you drop a meaningful glance, a subtle story, a line that hints but doesn't define, and then pull away without asking for anything, her brain scrambles to complete the story. And that's when she starts feeding the idea herself. She starts imagining how you'd touch, how you'd look at her in a quiet room, what it would feel like to surrender to you. And you didn't say any of that. She did, in her mind. Because you built the frame. Another underrated tool is selective vulnerability. Not oversharing, not emotional dumping, but revealing a sharp, unexpected truth about yourself at just the right moment. Something that adds depth. Something that hints there's a shadow beneath the surface, it's contrast again, but now at the character level. Most guys present a clean image. You, instead, let her glimpse the chaos you've tamed, the fire you've danced with, the part of you that survived something. This ignites a feminine instinct deeper than attraction. It awakens her urge to understand you, to decipher you. And the more she tries, the deeper the seed goes. Let's talk about metaphors. Why? Because metaphors speak to the unconscious mind directly. They bypass reason. They're ancient, primal. If you want to plant a feeling that lingers, don't just describe what's happening. Describe it through metaphor. Say, being around you feels like standing right at the edge of a cliff. Not dangerous, but that quiet thrill before you jump. That's not flirty, that's evocative. Her body reacts even before her brain catches up. And now, that feeling becomes linked to you. You're not just a guy she met, you're the cliff, the edge, the moment before the fall. This brings us to one of the most powerful psychological phenomena in seduction: projective identification. It's when a person begins to see in you something they've been secretly craving. And this happens when you become a blank canvas, but just enough. Not cold, not empty, but subtly undefined. You hint at depth, but you don't explain it. You show confidence, but don't label it. You flirt, but never explicitly. You stay open-ended. Why? Because she'll fill in the blanks with the exact traits her psyche is yearning for. If she's craving adventure, she'll see you as the untamed explorer. If she wants safety, you'll become the anchor. And if she's confused, good. Confusion binds attention, and attention is the doorway to influence. There's also the element of reverse curiosity. When you strategically withhold certain parts of your personality, not in a manipulative way but in a self-contained, grounded way, you create asymmetry. Most guys try to show everything too soon, but mystery triggers her imagination. When she senses there's more to discover about you, her interest deepens. A man who reveals himself too quickly gives her nothing to chase, but a man who invites her into curiosity, that man owns her attention. And let's not forget vocal cadence. This is where your delivery becomes as important as your content. Women respond viscerally to tone, pacing, rhythm. Slow speech suggests calm confidence. Intentional pauses create anticipation. Emphasizing certain words, especially ones tied to emotion, creates micro-emotional spikes. This isn't performance, it's presence. It's how you say something, not just what you say, that burns it into her subconscious. If you say something like, "Some moments just stay with you," and let the silence do the work, she'll feel it. Because now she's searching for the moment you meant, and in doing so, she assigns that meaning to you. This is the level few ever reach. When your words don't just influence her in the moment, they echo. They reappear in the shower, on a walk, late at night. You've become a story in her mind, and not just any story. The kind that writes itself deeper every time she remembers it. Now let's explore one of the most dangerously underestimated tools of influence: emotional resonance through anticipation. Most men are so focused on what to say in the moment that they forget one of the most powerful forces in the female mind: is the space between now and what's next. Anticipation creates tension. It builds a psychological vacuum that demands to be filled. And the longer that tension is held, without closure, the deeper the emotional impact. If you can learn how to create that slow magnetic buildup, where she feels like something meaningful is about to happen but doesn't know when or how, you've already taken over her mental bandwidth. This is how desire operates, not in certainty, but in possibility. Think of the best romantic scenes in film. They don't come from what's said, they come from what's left unsaid, from the slight lean in, from the pause right before a kiss that doesn't happen, from a hand that hovers close but doesn't quite touch. That's not rejection, that's psychological possession. You're not just giving her a moment, you're giving her a story she'll replay. And here's something almost no one talks about: delayed emotional payoffs. You drop something subtle in the beginning, a phrase, a gesture, a line with emotional weight, and you don't circle back to it right away. You leave it hanging. And just when she's forgotten about it, you return to it. You say something like, "Remember what I told you about the fire I sat beside as a kid?" Now it's back. But this time, it has a new layer, a new context. She connects the dots, and that moment becomes charged. Why? Because you didn't just give her a feeling, you gave her a thread to follow. And every time she pulls it, she uncovers more of you. This is the difference between a man who talks and a man who haunts her thoughts. Let's go even deeper. There's something called pattern interruption, and it's one of the most disarming tools in covert influence. The female brain is constantly scanning for patterns, how a guy acts, what he wants, what's coming next. But when you break a pattern subtly and strategically, you create a moment of openness, a window where the usual filters drop. For instance, imagine she's used to being complimented on her looks, and instead you say, "There's something sharp about the way you think, like you see things before other people do." Boom. Pattern broken. Her mind pauses. You just stepped out of the category every other man put himself in. And in that pause, her receptivity spikes. This is also why emotional contradiction is so effective. When you say something that combines two seemingly opposite emotional tones, it pulls her into the space between them. You might say, "You have this calming presence, but I get the feeling there's a storm under the surface." She's not sure if that's a compliment or a challenge, but she's drawn in. Why? Because now she wants to resolve that contradiction. She wants to know what you see that others miss. And just like that, you've invited her into your frame, not by pushing, but by drawing. Let's not overlook the raw, primal power of presence. Not what you say, not what you do, just how you are. The calm stillness of a man who doesn't chase, doesn't perform, doesn't rush to fill every silence. A man who lets the moment breathe, who holds eye contact, not with force, but with ease. Who doesn't ask for attention, because he already knows, he commands it. This kind of presence creates a gravitational pull. You don't need clever lines when your very energy communicates. "I don't need anything from you, and that's why you're drawn to me." Now here's another rarely tapped concept. Internal imagery projection. It's when you guide her mind to visualize something powerful, something emotional, and then subtly connect yourself to that imagery. You could say, "There's a place I go to clear my mind. Surrounded by trees, quiet water, the kind of silence that feels like it knows you." You're not trying to seduce her, but her brain is now associating you with that internal, peaceful state. And here's the secret. Whatever feeling she experiences while talking to you, her subconscious tags you as the source. That's what master seduction really is. Not logical persuasion, not external performance, but the ability to evoke emotional states and become linked to them. That's why a woman will crave a man she barely knows, because she's not addicted to him. She's addicted to the way she feels in his presence. Let's push this further. You want to plant ideas so deep that she doesn't even remember where they came from? Use open loops. Introduce an intriguing idea or question, then leave it unfinished. For example, you say, "I've always believed there's one moment in everyone's life that changes everything, but most people don't recognize it until it's too late." And then, you move on. You don't explain, you don't clarify, you just let it hang, and her mind will obsess over it. Why? Because the human brain hates incomplete patterns. It needs resolution. But the only way for her to resolve it is to come back to you. And finally, remember this. The most powerful ideas are not the ones she hears. They're the ones she feels like she discovered on her own. Your job is not to push, it's to guide, to suggest, to frame the emotional landscape so that her own desire becomes the echo of your presence. You don't chase, you don't convince, you plant. And when the time is right, she'll bloom in the direction you designed. And now you understand, this isn't about tricks, lines, or temporary impressions. It's about becoming unforgettable by mastering the subtle language of the subconscious. When you know how to plant ideas in her mind without her noticing, you no longer chase attraction. You create it. You no longer fight for attention. You become the thought she returns to when the room is quiet and her guard is down. This is real power, not loud, not desperate, but quiet, psychological, and magnetic. But here's the truth. Learning these techniques is just the beginning. Mastering them takes presence, practice, and precision. So if this awakened something in you, if you felt the shift in your own perception as we broke all this down, then imagine what's possible when you apply it consistently in real interactions, the kind that don't just get her attention, but change how she sees you forever. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of this video hit you the hardest? What's the one technique you're going to start using tonight? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more real unfiltered psychology of seduction, influence, and masculine mastery, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because what's coming next goes even deeper. Share this with a friend who needs to stop chasing and start commanding attention. And remember, never beg to be remembered. Just plant the idea and disappear. She'll do the rest. See you in the next one.